Hello, students. Today we are going to have a discussion on justice. Justice from liberal and Marxist perspective. Yesterday we had a discussion on this topic. We tried to understand what actually is the concept of justice, and also how justice has been viewed by ancient Greek philosophers and modern philosophers, and also contemporary philosophers. We also discussed about the definition. We also discussed a few important definitions given by the great political philosophers. Today, we are going to have a discussion on equality from the perspective of liberalism and Marxism. So this is a very important topic, as we have been discussing about the concept of liberty from liberal perspective, Marxist perspective, and feminist perspective. And after that, we also discussed the concept of equality from the point of view of liberalism, Marxism, and feminism. And this is the last political value, that is justice, about which we have been discussing since yesterday. We had a wonderful discussion yesterday on the concept of justice, how justice should be understood. It's a very a concept which is the main theme of all the earlier political values, like liberty and equality. And also it is a kind of a coordination of all these values. That is how we should understand liberty. And also generally we should understand that liberty is a concept which aims at some goodness of all the human beings living in a society or in a country. Now let us start the discussion of the concept of equality from the point of view of liberalism and communism or Marxism. Yes, the justice, liberal and Marxist perspective. Liberal perspective on justice treats liberty as the central concept of justice. See, we have been discussing how the concept of justice by the liberal philosophers looked at. They thought liberty is the central theme of the concept of justice for liberal thinkers. And those liberalism is of two kinds. It looks at the liberty as the central concept of justice from negative and positive angle. We should understand what is negative and positive. Negative liberalism is the liberalism that emphasizes on removing the obstacles in the way of a person realizing his liberty. So removing the obstacles, that is important. The main obstacle they thought was state and its law is the main obstacle in the way of a human being in enjoying his liberty. And positive liberalism believes that by providing certain conditions, certain enabling conditions, one will really enjoy his liberty. So here the ultimate aim of liberty is to ensure the full development of a human personality. So the people believing in negative liberalism believe that the capitalist society, where state would not interfere into the economic affairs of a human being, would provide necessary or remove the obstacles in the way of a person enjoying his liberty. Whereas positive liberalism believes that, only when an individual is provided with the unnecessary conditions, then he will be able to enjoy his liberty. So that is the basic difference between negative liberalism and positive liberalism. And also the Marxism wanted to transform the entire mode of production and property relations. So the liberal thinking is a kind of, incremental, it watches for, it argues for, incremental changes or reforms in the existing system so that individuals will enjoy their freedoms, their liberties. But Marxism is entirely different. It aims at, a complete transformation of the existing social structure, which is, as per Marxism, is based on, material conditions. Here, the material conditions should be understood in terms of mode of production and property relations. So until and unless there is a complete change in the basic structure of the society, the structure is determined by the mode of production. So if that mode of production or the change in means of production is not brought about changes, there won't be any changes. And the changes in the mode of production result in corresponding changes in the criteria of right, wrong, just and unjust. So that decides. So in any society, the material conditions, here material conditions should be understood as mode of production. Mode of production contains two elements, a means of production and relations of productions. If these two are not changed, then there won't be a complete transformation in the society. So for Marxists, it is the fundamental thing. The material base should be changed. Only then everything can be automatically changed. That is what they believe in. The moment the changes in the mode of production are brought about, then only the corresponding changes would appear in the criteria of right and wrong, just and unjust. That is what Marxists believe. So we have got clear understanding about liberal perspective and Marxist perspective. Liberal perspective is a perspective which gives importance to market-based society, and the Marxist perspective is a perspective which gives importance to collective benefit, which believes in bringing about total change in the material conditions of the society. Now let us see the liberalism is again divided into two types: positive liberalism and a negative liberalism. Here, negative liberty. The earlier classical economists and utilitarians, they were the main important or the most prominent philosophers of negative liberty or classical economy, and also utilitarians. Adam Smith, who wrote a book called The Wealth of the Nations in 18th century. It is so famous. And Jeremy Bentham, he was the pioneer of utilitarian thinkers. And James Mill, his friend, was also a utilitarian thinker. And Herbert Spencer was also a classical economist who emphasized on removing the obstacles in the lives of the people, so that they will have liberty and freedom. The more state interferes, the less the people will have liberty. That is what they believed in. So state should perform those functions which are of in limited nature. A state should confine itself, performing only a few functions, like protecting the nation and protecting the law and order. Only those activities were the concern of the state, and the rest of the activities, if people are given freedom, they develop. If they feel that something is to be produced, they produce. That is how everybody will work, because everybody works for his own need. Everybody is a selfish individual. If he wants to survive, he will work. And if everybody works like that, then automatically a kind of benefit will occur. That is how, collective benefit will be the result when individuals work out of their necessity. Then, thus, individuals develop. That is what, negative liberty, propounded. And utilitarians' main ambition was to achieve, highest happiness to the highest number of people, largest happiness to the largest number of people. So it viewed society as a mechanical togetherness of individuals, a mechanical combination of individuals. It viewed if maximum individuals are benefit, if maximum individuals benefit, then automatically society will benefit. That is how Jeremy Bentham viewed. Their philosophy was utilitarian philosophy. And James Mill is also one of the great utilitarian thinkers, and Herbert Spencer. They all, they were for negative liberty. That is, removing obstacles was their main criteria. Obstacles from state interference. That was their main idea of liberty. And when this negative liberty due to capitalism and market society, or laissez-faireism means keeping aside. The state should not interfere. State should have very limited role. So when this kind of market economy was promoted, the result of the market economy, the functioning of the market economy, was huge inequalities. And the majority of the people, suffered due to poverty and, due to ignorance and due to lack of minimum necessities of life. So they felt, later on, J.S. Mill especially, in 19th century, felt that, negative liberty or the laissez-faireism or market economy resulted in, lot of inequality, lot of poverty, and laboring class suffered in the industries, and their labor was exploited. And they felt that, majority of the people need certain conditions to enjoy the liberty. So that is how positive liberalism began. Positive liberalism especially was supported, was propounded by J.S. Mill, John Stuart Mill. He wrote a great essay on liberty. And T.H. Green and Hobhouse and H.J. Lasky. These were the people who emphasized on provision of certain minimum needs to the people by the state. That is how the concept of welfare state has come into being. So now the liberalism, the entire tradition of liberalism, from early classical period to modern period, should be divided into two broad categories. One period was dominated by negative liberalism, and the modern period, especially after J.S. Mill's great essay on liberty, they began to think that state should interfere and provide certain minimum necessities of life to the people. Then people will enjoy their liberty and develop. That is what positive liberalism believed in. And so that is the main difference between negative liberty and positive liberty. So we have to divide liberalism into these two broad categories. Now later on, the modern libertarian perspective, it's a modern perspective of another different version of liberalism. Is the latest version of the liberalism. It almost corresponds to classical liberal tradition. It also treats liberty of the individual as its central problem. It focuses on formal or procedural liberty. It opposes the idea of welfare state. So again after 1970s, a new thinking has started, which opposes the state activity, the welfare state concept. So again they go back to the classical economy system of thinking, where individuals should be given more freedom and state should interfere less and less. um, this is the after libertarian perspective by Milton, F.A. Hayek, and Nozick. Again, in after 1970s, there was a new or a path-breaking thought came into being with the theory or with the book published by John Rawls. John Rawls' book, A Theory of Justice. Justice as Fairness. He discovered a method for making procedural justice an instrument of meeting the requirements of substantive justice. Yesterday we discussed about procedural justice and substantive justice. Procedural justice is one which believes in market economy and people develop on their own when given freedom. That is the procedural justice believes in. Whereas substantive justice believes that people should have access to minimum necessities of the life. Only then they will enjoy their liberty. That is the substantive justice, giving justice to all underprivileged sections of the society. He tries to combine, John Rawls tries to combine the values of socialism and capitalism. Now, we discussed how liberalism gave importance to capitalism, and later liberalism also gave importance to a kind of welfare state, but basically it believed in the liberty of the individual, that is removing obstacles in the way of a human being in his enjoyment of liberty. But that is what liberalism believed in. But later on, socialism believed in providing or bringing about changes in the economic system, where the means of production is sought to be nationalized or socialized, so that there would be economic equality. That economic equality will give rise to the liberty of all. That is what socialism believed in. But the socialism or Marxist kind of justice has seen lot of excesses, lot of autocratic tendencies, whereas in the case of liberalism, classical liberalism and liberalism, there was huge inequality. So there are gross defects in the Marxist view of justice, and also the view of liberalism of justice. Now here is a thinker called John Rawls, through his book A Theory of Justice, tries to combine the values of socialism and capitalism. That is the greatness of the Rawls theory of justice. According to him, yesterday we had discussed about this. Justice is the first virtue of social institutions, as truth is of system of thought. Like how truth is the main theme of the system of thought, or main base of the system of thought, like that. Now virtue is the basic criteria, is the first thing of any social institutions. So justice, if you create any social institution, you should have a concern towards justice, that it should give equal priority or almost equal benefits to the people who are being covered by that social institution. So justice is an interpretation of principles that are suggested for the distribution of rights and duties, and at the same time division of social advantage among all the members of body politic. So this is how John Rawls viewed the concept of justice. Now the John Rawls principles of justice is very important here. He gave two principles of justice. Those two principles were the result of people having decided from their original position in the context of veil of ignorance. They were not aware of their class position or group position or any other position. Based on their rationality, based on their common sense, they designed a kind of social organization based on certain principles. So that first principle here, they people developed from their original position two principles that would ensure justice. Principle of equal liberty. Each person has an equal right to the most extensive liberties compatible with similar liberties for all. And another principle, difference principle. Social and economic inequalities should be arranged so that they are both to the greatest benefit of the least advantaged person. This is very important. If there are inequalities, why in the society there are inequalities? The reason is maybe historical reason, and another reason is because of the differentiation in skills, in talents, or because of the differentiation in efficiency. But those can be allowed as long as that difference can be allowed as long as it is beneficial to the least advantaged persons. This is very important. And attach it to offices and positions open to all under conditions of equality of opportunities. So this is how the John Rawls wanted to attain justice. Now after having discussed about the liberal tradition and Marxist tradition, and also the contemporary tradition, contemporary theories of justice. These theories focus on distinction between substantial justice and procedural justice. Yesterday, we had a discussion on the concept of substantial justice and procedural justice. How substantial justice, you see, procedural justice treats the rules of market economy as the model rules of human behavior. So if market is given freedom, where goods are sold and bought based on demand and supply, the prices are decided by supply and demand. If these rules allowed to be functioning, then automatically the justice would be achieved. Then freedom of contract is the mainstay of procedural justice. So there is a freedom of contract. Anybody can enter into contract with anybody to run his business or to run his economic activity. That enables the people to work based on market principles. So this is procedural justice. And the main thinkers of procedural justice were F.A. Hayek, Milton Friedman, and Robert Nozick were its main exponents. The idea of substantive justice corresponds to the philosophy of socialism. Yesterday we had a discussion on this. What is socialism? How substantive justice corresponds to the philosophy of socialism. The allocation and distribution is the primary issue and the procedural aspects are secondary. This is how socialism views the concept of justice. Now, Marxist perspective. Let us know the Marxist perspective. Already we had a discussion with regard to liberty and equality, but now how justice is viewed by the Marxist perspective. The Marx and Engels have shown the extent of injustice through the concept of surplus value, which is inherent in the capitalist system. They explained how the surplus value, that is here surplus value should be understood as the profit, how industrialists or capitalists derive profit by exploiting the laborers labor, how labor is being exploited. For example, the value of production should go to the workers as wages, but only a portion of the value of output is given to the working class as wages, and the rest, majority of the profit is taken or is swindled by the capitalist class. So that is how labor is exploited in the capitalist class, and there would be injustice. Marx has conceded the moral supremacy of one mode of distribution, from each according to his need, over another mode of distribution to each according to his ability. In liberal democracies, the important mode of distribution is to each according to his ability. Whoever is efficient will get more in liberal societies. But this kind of distribution is not rational according to, is not rational and moral according to Marx. So the distribution, the mode of distribution should be from each according to his need. That is the rational way of distribution. That is what Marxism believes in. And socialist system, the production relations of the socialist society are based on cooperation and mutual assistance among the workers liberated from exploitation. So once the capitalist system is abolished through proletariat dictatorship, the production relations of the socialist society, that is what the ultimate aim of the Marxist philosophy, are based on cooperation and mutual assistance. The socialist system believes that people should not compete between each other. They should cooperate among themselves, because people have to cooperate among themselves, because the talents of different people are different. One people is having one talent, another people is having another talent. So both should cooperate. They should not compete. That is what social system believes. Only when people cooperate among themselves, there would prevail justice, true justice, and rational system of production. The common ownership of the major means of production would create conditions for the fullest development of the forces of production for meeting social needs. So this is what rational system of production means. That is, there should be common ownership. That is, there should not be private ownership, private property. Private property should be abolished. Then common ownership, only when there is common ownership of the major means of production, there would be no justice. And fight against injustice in the international sphere. Marxism also calls for justice at the world level. Marx call workers of the world unite, signifies the duty of the socialist states to help revolutionary movements of the oppressed classes abroad in their fight against imperialism and colonialism. See, the imperialism and colonialism, as Lenin said, is the ultimate stage of capitalist exploitation or capitalism. That is how only when there is rational system of production, only when there is social ownership of the means of production, then there would be real justice in the society. That is what Marxism believes in. So here we have to understand the difference between liberal perspective of justice and Marxist perspective of justice. This is a very important topic, and also the important contributions made by John Rawls through his book, A Theory of Justice. So this is how we should understand justice from the point of view of liberalism and Marxism. Thank you very much.